Good morning, everyone. It is a delight every time I am here to see more and more people in the pews. So I want to say welcome to all of you, and also welcome to anyone who's watching us online. I know it is hard, especially as April has not let us have any warm weather yet, to get out of bed and into regular clothes. I'm loving these PJs these days. So, my name is Claudia. I'm a consulting minister here at First Unitarian Universalist Church of Alton, Illinois. I keep wanting to say Alton, Missouri. And it is just a delight to be here with you today. I'm solo in the pulpit this morning because my son brought home a cold, and I don't want to pass it to anybody up here. So that's also why I will not be singing today. Keep my germs to myself. So I wanted to say welcome, everyone, to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. We open our service this morning with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Hecht. An important ritual in our faith is the lighting of our chalice. We have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. I invite you to join me in celebrating all of these reasons and more. If you are watching online and you have a candle or a chalice that you wish to light, please feel free to do so now, as we all join in saying the unison words projected on our screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite holidays, the holiday of Pesach, or Passover, and some meaning that it has for Unitarian Universalists, whether they observe Jewish holy days or not. As an ordained Kohenet, or Jewish priestess, I tend to uplift and celebrate the feminine and divine, so the prayers that I'm going to be using today will have a lot of goddess language in them as well. I invite you to join me as you are willing and able in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Bruchach et Shekinah, Elotenu melech haolam, shehekianu, vikimanu, vehigianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, indwelling infinity, goddess of the cosmos, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this joyful celebration. I invite you to remain seated and join with us in our opening hymn. It's number 210 in the gray hymnal, Wade in the Water. Okay, I'm already struggling not to belt out these tunes, so you'll have to just bear with me if I'm humming along over here. It is a tradition in this church to place each service in the context of the larger sources and principles that we as Unitarian Universalists hold dear. While we are a religion with no requirements of creed or belief, we do have things we support overall. And the service today is coming from our deep roots in the Jewish tradition and also following our sixth principle, which is the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. At the heart of the story of Pesach is striving for freedom. While we often think that slavery is behind us, the truth is that far too many displaced people, refugees, women, and children are still forced into slavery today through the evils of human trafficking. And millions more are still facing the repercussions of slavery that today we call racism and systemic oppression. While the Torah is a product of its time and unfortunately does reflect some things that need to have been changed, it is also amazingly forward-thinking in its constant and often repeated declaration that we must treat all persons equally, especially the vulnerable and oppressed, because we Jews were once slaves ourselves. Today we will look at this story with modern eyes and look for more ways to love our neighbor as ourselves. One of the ways that we love each other and those around us is through this expression we call joys and sorrows. As part of our weekly worship service, we invite you now to come up here in the front. We're going to line up this way and then go back the other direction. Anyone who would like to light a candle representing what is in their heart or thoughts can please come forward and light a candle and leave the lit candle on the tray. Those of you that are home may also do so as well. Let us begin. Even as we hold all of these loved ones and situations in our heart, I invite you to join with us in our next hymn. It's a spiritual, and the African Americans, when they were enslaved people, wrote these because the story of the Exodus was so powerful for them. So I invite you to hold in your hearts not only the situations you know of, but all those who are oppressed around the world, especially the people of Ukraine at this time, as we join together in hymn number 104, When Israel Was in Egypt's Land. There is an old but true saying that every Jewish holiday boils down to, they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. This morning, we're specifically going to talk about the holiday of Pesach, known as Passover, and not only its importance to the Jewish tradition, which is a fascinating history story for most of you, but also the idea of what does this holiday mean for us as Unitarian Universalists when we say that we support and uplift our Jewish roots. First of all, it is not a reach to say that this is the central holiday of Jewish life. Mythologically speaking, it is when the people went from individual families into a nation. Liturgically, it represents the beginning of the pilgrim festivals where the people in ancient Israel would come to Jerusalem and bring their taxes, essentially, their religious taxes of goats and sheep and grain and other things. And this is a cycle that starts with the spring lambs at Passover, because they've just been born. We've been dealing with sheep stuff on the farm, so I can tell you it's a very busy time for shepherds. And so they would take their lambs in and offer their sacrifices, and then it would go all the way through the fall grain harvests. In modern times, most people, when you think about Jewish holidays, think about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, called the High Holy Days. These are the biggest attendance days in synagogue, but Passover is a home celebration. One of the most interesting things about it, and a lot of the Jewish holidays, is that they are 8-day celebrations. And so many of us will not only host our own Passover celebration at home, but we'll go to at least one, maybe 2, 3, 4 other people's Passover. So we literally get to do this multiple times in this one holiday. More Jews attend Seders than probably any other event of the year. Now, it's called a Seder because the word Seder means order, and there is a very specific ritual order in which events occur. The reason for that is because this is a ritual reenactment of the Exodus story that many of us grew up with hearing in our churches or in other places. In case you didn't, the basic story goes like this. A long, long time ago, in a land far, far away, a bunch of people were starving, and so they went to another country to find food. Over hundreds of years, that country decided that they were a second-class citizen and made them into slaves. Eventually, somebody rose up and said, "This is terrible. We shouldn't do this anymore." And he fought with the king and fought with the king and fought with the king. Finally, after a series of horrible events happened, the king said, "Fine, get out of here. I hate all of you. Go away." So all the slaves packed up and raced away as fast as they could, and so fast that they couldn't even let their bread rise in the oven. That's why we have these horrible flat crackers called matzah. They're gross. Nobody likes them. Nobody likes these things. But we eat them because our ancestors had to do this, and so therefore we do the thing, because tradition. All right, so the people get out and they almost get to freedom, and all of a sudden the king goes, "Wait a minute, why did I let my slaves go? That's stupid. That's going to be terrible for our economy. Get back here." And he sends the army after them, and God washes them all away in a big flood. The end. Okay. That's literally the story of Exodus told in about 1 minute. Okay, so before people go to Passover. We go through our houses, many of us, and clean out everything that's leavened or fluffy or whatever, because we want to make sure that we're reenacting the story right? So everybody runs away and gets rid of all their stuff that could be a problem. And there's all these traditions about this holiday, and I could literally teach a semester-long class just on the customs of Passover. And it's different whether your ancestors came from Eastern Europe or whether they came from what's called Sephardic countries, which is like Morocco and Yemen and Spain and Portugal, places like that. They have different customs about what you can and can't eat and what you can and can't do and how you do the things. So I'm not going to get into all that. It's fun, it's fascinating, I'm a nerd, I like this kind of stuff. But the important thing to know is that you have Passover, it retells the Exodus, and everybody tells the story using a book called a Haggadah, or Haggadot, which is the plural. And this is a personal spin on the story, right? So as far as I know, you still can get it through Maxwell House. They're extremely conservative Jews, and they actually published a Haggadah for ages and ages and ages. So you can go with the most conservative retellings, or you can do some real different diversion and all kinds of native uplifting sorts of things. For example, there are Haggadot for kids, there are Haggadot for queer people, and there are Haggadot for queer kids. Like literally, you can find anything to make this story a retelling, because the point of the whole story is for us to understand the oppressions we are under and to work towards liberation. So that liberation looks different for different people at different times and places, but the idea is that we're celebrating something that happened in history, mythic history, but history, and also that we're celebrating our own continual quest for liberation. Part of the Seder itself is a special plate that has all of these ritual items on the day. And again, there's traditional versions of this and there's modern versions. And because we typically go to many Seders in a year, you get to kind of see the spectrum of people's practice and what's important to people in their lives by what they're put in their Seder. So this is all fun and fascinating, but what value does it have for those of you who are here today, right? At its heart, Pesach is a holiday celebrating our continued liberation as a people, while it acknowledges that there is still much work to do. It pays a special attention to the fact that the work of liberation always comes at a price, because systems of oppression always create victims. The story is told and retold and interpreted every single year to meet the needs of that moment, while the desired goals of justice, liberation, and freedom are always the same. One of the hardest things to do when one has gained freedom is to extend that freedom to those who once oppressed you. Passover is a deliberate reminder that freedom is not just nice to have, it is a requirement for all. For without all being free, there can be no progress towards the ideal society that Jews tend to call the Messianic age, and others, like you use, call the beloved community. Passover forces us to confront both our own blessings and our own limitations. It forces us to see how we are oppressed and how we oppress others, how we find freedom and how much work there is left to do. It has value for all of us as Unitarian Universalists because it connects history to the present, because it puts liberation and freedom at the core of the religion, and because it balances joy with hard work and sorrow. First and foremost, it connects history to the present. It is not enough for us to rest on our laurels saying, oh, this country was founded to be a democracy. Oh, Unitarian Universalists welcome all. Every day, every vote, every bill, and every law matters. A dear friend of mine had to leave. They were staying with us for a couple days, and they raced back home so they could vote in the municipal election. And it turns out it's a good thing they did, because the candidate that was more progressive won by 1 vote. Theirs. Freedom is not free by any means. And if any of you guys are lucky you're on this side of the river, but for any of us who live on the Missouri side, the horrific things that are going on, those anti-trans bills, the anti-healthcare bills, Some call them abortion bills, but no, they're all about oppressing and enslaving the people who are weakest and most vulnerable in our society. They are evil. I do not have another word to say about it. To tell people that they cannot care for their children and give them the proper treatments that they need to be healthy and happy, to tell people that they must be forced to endure something, whether or not they are responsible or whether or not they want it, solely because some oppressor somewhere wants to keep people enslaved. If they really cared about the babies, they'd be willing to adopt them and expand Medicaid and pay for more things and give people food stamps and make sure that those children were fed and taken care of. I volunteer at Cardinal Glennon, and I can tell you what happens when you force poor and vulnerable people into these situations. You wind up with horrible outcomes. And it's not the individual's necessarily fault, right? They've been oppressed for so long, and they have nothing left to give. The fault lies with Jeff City and the oppressors. Freedom is not free, and Pesach reminds us of that over and over again. If we do not stand up and yell and scream and shout and insist on freedom, we will slide backwards into those abysmal days of yore. The fact that someone has even thought it reasonable to suggest that 50 years of women's rights should be overturned. The fact that there are people putting out these horrific conspiracy theories and no one is calling them on it. Folks, we are at a crux, and Pesach reminds us what happens if we sit by and don't fight. The progressive values that protesters and abolitionists and suffragettes, the fact that the Underground Railroad came through this very location, people have bled and died for these things, and they are under assault. Your time and talent, your rituals, your money, your energy work, whatever you have is needed. Pesach reminds us that oppression is not a thing that happened in the past. It is a thing that is happening right now. Never again, said the Jewish people after the horrors of the Holocaust. And I say that Pesach reminds us that never again must be our cry as Unitarian Universalists, that we must never allow this to happen. The second thing is that it reminds us that liberation and freedom are at the core of both Jewish religion and Unitarian Universalists. Now, this fact can get muddied by people in power. Certainly, Israel is not the best at human rights by any stretch of the imagination. And it reflects the fact that it is hard when you have been oppressed and threatened with violence and death. It is so very hard to turn around and offer a hand of friendship to the people who did this to you. This fact is muddied by those in power, but Judaism as a whole and Jesus himself were insistent on the importance of freedom for the religious life. Nobody is free, truly, until we are all free. In the middle of the Seder meal, even the most conservative and fundamentalist of Jews drain some wine from their glass in sorrow at the death of the Egyptians. There is a reminder in the middle of the celebration of our freedom that oppressing people are still trapped by their own oppressive systems. We look at Ukraine and we look at Russia and we see how both sides are suffering from the decisions of a powerful few. They are not suffering in the same way, but they are both suffering. Our joy cannot be complete while others suffer. The work of religion is liberation from anyone and anything that enslaves. We cannot stop. We are not done until everyone is truly free. Working for freedom is a religious, holy work, and we have every right and every responsibility to stand up for the vulnerable where and how we can. Last but not least, Passover reminds us that we must balance joy with sorrow, work and pleasure. It begins with a deep cleaning of the house and a spiritual inventory of our lives. It is a large and a complicated ritual that you have to, when you're a host, there's so many things you have to do, like any large holiday gathering. It is festive and joyful. The tone is gratitude for freedom. and yet we mourn for those who died and were oppressed. We mourn for those who didn't make it to freedom, and we gravely assess the ways our freedom is not complete. And then we party some more. This balance of work and play, joy and sorrow, is something that Jews have had thousands of years to develop, since the Jewish people are always under attack somewhere. To only be happy when all is well would mean never being happy. But to ignore the sorrows around us is to become a bunch of sociopaths without empathy. So as in so many things, Judaism aims for the middle road. It says, be happy and rejoice in the freedom you have, but don't forget the suffering of others. Be at ease, rest, and enjoy the holy day, but remember the work is not over, and we still have to get back to it. As you use, especially with the politics that are going on the last few years and even now, it is so easy to get discouraged, to feel like the world is against us and nobody cares about freedom, that nothing we do is enough. But Passover reminds us that even in the dark times of pogroms and inquisitions, there is a time to be joyful. The synagogues in the Ukraine right now are preparing to have their Seder meals. They celebrated the holiday of Purim even as they were fleeing into a country because their lives were at risk. Miriam the prophet sang and danced at the freedom of the Jewish people even as they were running from Pharaoh's army. This idea of cultivating gratitude for what we have, even as we work so that all may have a better life, this is the essence of Passover. And my prayer is that you can find this balance of work and play, joy and empathy, and let it take root in your soul and enable each of us to celebrate the good that we have in our lives, even as we come together to work against the injustices and oppressions that people here in our own country, as well as around the world, face today. Amen, and blessed be. Our final hymn this morning is number 95, There's More Love Somewhere. One of the ways that we can fight oppression is by the support of this church and this community. As Robin passes around the offertory basket, I offer this reminder that this place is supported only by your giving. The stewardship involved in countering oppression does not just mean money, it means your time, your talent, your energy, and your love as well. Please help this church survive and thrive by offering as you are able in order to make this place continue. For those who are watching online or who are with us in other ways, you may also mail your financial gift to the First Unitarian Church, P.O. Box 494, Alton, Illinois, 62002. You can also give electronically through the Givelify or the PayPal apps. If you are willing to donate time or talent and a board member hasn't already caught you, feel free to see Robin and she will take care of you. Please join with me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. I invite you to join with me in reciting our ending prayer as we extinguish our chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are the keepers of this flame until we meet again. Dayenu, the Hebrew word literally means it is enough, and it helps us cultivate the practice of being grateful for what we have and who we have during the ritual of Passover. May we each find our Dayenu today and every day. May we give and receive. May what we do and not do, may what we have or not have be enough as we all work together to bend the moral arc of the universe that much closer to justice and the liberation of all. Amen. Our postlude today is this really... Oh, announcements! We have announcements. Sorry. I was zipping along here. I was paying no attention. Okay. Besides what's on. All right, well, I can announce these real quick, or if you want to do them all. All right, so first of all, if you are a visitor and you want to receive the monthly newsletter or the informational flyer, or just want more information, just fill out your visitor card on the visitor information table by the windows in the fellowship hall, and there's a basket to put the card into. If you want a name badge, there is also a name badge spot, so you can sign up to get that done. And then after the service today, something I'm really excited about is there's going to be a slideshow in the fellowship hall for Jerry and Mary's recent trip to Cuba. So if you're like me and that's always been a place you're fascinated by but don't know a lot about, you're invited to stay and watch any or all of that show.
So a couple of announcements. First of all, there's going to be, I think that there's going to be a work day April 23rd in, I guess it's Alton Citywide Cleanup. If anybody's interested in being a part of that, let us know. If we can get a couple people together that can help on that day, it would be wonderful. I'm happy to coordinate it and happy to do it. Because I got an area that we would like to be involved in. So anyway, just let me know if you're interested in being part of that. Second, we are going to have a little Easter celebration next week. Yay! We're going to have some sweets. We're going to have some sandwiches, vegetarian options after service next week. Not a big deal, but just something that sort of help us to celebrate. It's a brand new getting us back to really our lovely routine that we want to see with people very fuse more and more each week, and it makes me happy. Then flower communion will be Mother's Day again. So just putting it in your head to start thinking about cultivating your lovely flowers for us to have on our community. We've done it virtually the last few years, and it'll be lovely to be able to have really beautiful, lovely flowers here to share on Mother's Day in May. The last announcement is regarding the minister's search. I want you to know that we're in a really good place. Yes! We unfortunately cannot announce the name of that individual yet for professional and personal reasons. But as soon as we're able to do that, we will. But we're in a lovely place. And I guess the good news is we're starting a leader because we're going to get to use. Yay! I love Claudia. Yay! So I just want you to know that we're really moving forward in a good place. Everything's going well. And also, how exciting for Tracy and Matt. They're going to be in France for 3 years. He's got a position there. He'll be there for 3 years. They still want to stay connected to us, and he'll be back here in due time. But just letting you know that that's good news for them, and we're happy for all of them. And while we're all listening here, it's great that we're going to have an amazing experience. So that's all the announcements.
All right, thank you. I do think it is so wonderful, the fact that we have this technology now. I mean, even 5 or 10 years ago, if someone had an event like that, it was over. You lost touch with that person, and now they can still tune in every week and watch services and be a part of things and still remain active in this community. And so that is a true blessing. And for those who are like me and are often homebound, I know this technology has really been a wonderful, wonderful thing. So our postlude today, I'm going to give a little preface to this. It is by a Jewish group called the Maccabeats. They're fabulous. They do a lot of YouTube videos. And I will say, though, this is almost 5 minutes long. So if any of you need to get up and leave during any point of that, that is totally okay. Tend to your bodies, tend to yourself. But I also invite you, if you are able to sit through it, to watch this amazing video that kind of walks you through a little bit of a Seder. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that just so that anybody who's online, I don't know that they could hear that. There is an exhibit called the 72 Faces, and it's a whole Faces Not Forgotten, and it is a fabulous exhibit. It is at the Central Reformed Congregation, which is in the city of St. Louis. It's not actually too far from here, and you're invited to go and see that. You do need to bring your proof of vaccination with you so that you can go into the building. Jews are health is very important, and so that's usually a thing that we do, is to keep people up to date on that sort of thing. But if you do get a chance to go, it's Faces Not Forgotten at Central Reformed Congregation. You just need to bring your proof of vaccination to go. If you just Google Central Reformed Congregation, I'm sure it's on their website with all the hours and information that you need. So I invite you to do that as well. All right. Any other announcements? Anything I'm missing? I feel like I jumped right through things today. All right. Well, enjoy this postlude, and feel free, as I said, to get up and move as you need to. It's been a blessing to be here with you.
Ilu ilu hotzianu hotzianu mi mitzrayim hotzianu mi mitzrayim dayenu 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 Dayenu, Dayenu, Ilu ilu koralanu etayam Dayenu, Dayenu, Ilu ilu echilanu etaman Dayenu Hey! 2, 3, 4 Ilu natalanu Shabbat natalanu Dayenu Dayenu Ilu ilu kebanu leise Hasina leise Hasina Dayenu Dayenu Natalanu, Natalanu, Echa Torah, Natalanu, Echa Torah, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu ilu ichnisanu li'eretz Yisrael, 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 Dayenu, 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 Dayenu.
Aviva, it's time to open the door for Eliyahu.
And Dayenu.
There it is. Dayenu.
Here's
Isn't it?
what's next for us.
That's right.